First of all, visually, that fucking pink and paisley Telecaster, I want that guitar so goddamn bad. That thing was beautiful looking. Oh my god, I loved it. Hey, everybody out there in the YouTube world. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. Andy and John here for your entertainment. And John over there with the jazz fingers is going to be offering us up a band and tune to listen to. I'm going to go check it out. And we're going to come back. And we're going to chop it up. John, sir, what do you have in the chamber?
So we have a band called the Dream Syndicate. You heard of them?
Yeah, I have heard of them quite a bit, but as much as I've heard about them, I don't think I've heard anything from them. I've never actively sought them out, and as much as I've been told about them, I don't think anybody was like, and now we're going to listen to them and then put them on. So,
and now we're going to listen to them. So
there you go. You picked up on the cue like clockwork.
So this is a track called "How Did I Find Myself Here?"
That chestnut of a question. Okay. Well,
every Sunday morning I used to ask myself that
until you stop going, right?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I'll go up and give it a listen and come back and let you know what I think, man.
Let's open it up a little bit.
Yeah, let's. Ooh. That pink and paisley guitar is badass. Nice bass. They kind of like the whatever the keys are doing to just fill out that sound underneath is really pretty. Kind of gets lost. I had to comb through all this other stuff to find it, but man, I was like, what is that? Because it's just it's kind of constant in its sound, and it's lovely. It's it adds body to the music. Awesome bass, great guitar stuff happening. This guy knows how to keep a beat as well. Digging this. God, I wish I looked this cool when I'm 15 years from now. What do we got here? Cameraman's giving me goddamn whiplash. All right, this is all lovely, but can we please get on the man who is making that sound? I need to see that guitar work. Come on. bending that shit like Beckham.
Prodigal son who could not go on. How did I find myself here? Open wide and I swallowed the tide. How did I find myself here? But I could not believe. I could hardly conceive, so I knew I had to leave. I had to leave. I'm wondering who put a spell on me and you. How did I find myself here? Tripped up by my own game, so I put my finger to the flame.
Nice bass.
How did I find myself here? But I just didn't know what I laid out below. So I knew I had to go.
That's great. So good. Whew. That was awesome. Those two guitars, their sounds and what they were playing commingled so well together. Great, great lead guitar parts across that whole sort of just portion, but also just that crashing, clanging of that beautiful pink Paisley Telecaster. Sounded so great together, and the bass work beneath it all, just really well executed. I would take that back, but it's like 2.5 minutes of just amazingness. If anything, it's just an indicator that I'll be listening to this song in the near future, probably plenty of times. Awesome shit, man. Loved that.
An impossible tide, so I stepped right inside. How did I find myself? Refugee who couldn't see. How did I find myself? But I just didn't know. What I laid out below, so I knew I had to go. I had to go.
That was so good. There was so much friction in that guitar playing. This dude, the dude on the Sunburst guitar. I mean, this guitar looks beautiful, and he's doing a great job. But the more subtle looking guitar is the one that's just fucking killing it on this track. I love it so much. Look at this. Yeah, I really enjoyed that tune. Love what they did there towards the end. Well, one, that lead, everything that was going on with that lead was awesome. Then that 20-second portion where the lead guitarist does some really awesome friction and bending. And then they played with that sort of like the tried and true, like let's deconstruct, rebuild. Not only rebuild, but then kick it up to double speed, and then what sounded like triple speed by the time it was all done. It was just great. It was really good musicianship, really well composed song. We have 4 guys there, maybe 5. I think were there keys or something? Because I thought I heard that sustain sound earlier in the track. Regardless, everybody did their job and did it really well. Man, I've heard this name plenty of times. I can't believe I've never dabbled until this moment. But yeah, that was an awesome performance. I'd expect nothing less from KEXP. Excellent job. Let's get back to John.
So you're back.
Yeah,
How did you find your way back?
I didn't want to come back. It was a great experience. You didn't tell me it was going to be a KEXP joint. So I was,
Oh, completely forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, I
Love
was pleased
pancake.
to see the little fade in there at the beginning. I was like, oh, I know those letters.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Um, I first of all, visually, that fucking pink and paisley Telecaster. I want that guitar so goddamn bad. That thing was beautiful looking. Oh my god, I loved it, and I liked sort of their ensemble, that what they were wearing sort of matched what they were playing too, and I kind of picked up on that as someone who loves color palettes. So I was like, oh man, that's so fucking cool. I love this. But no, the music, that's what we're here for. It was great. It was we get treated to some like really really pretty guitar and key. Is there a keyboardist? Because in the beginning I thought I heard like the sustained kind of key sound underneath everything, but as the song progressed, I didn't eyeball anybody. It was really just those four guys. But it sounded like there was some sort of sustained sound beneath the mix that was kind of helping to fill it out, especially there early on in the beginning. I don't know if it was my mind playing tricks on me or my ears playing tricks on me, but it
Yeah,
sounded like something was there.
on the album there is keyboards, but I didn't. I mean, yeah, there was something slightly at the beginning, but they never showed anyone. I'm just wondering if it's maybe a
They just
backing track.
patched it in. Yeah, they
Yeah,
probably just patched that in. Yeah, yeah. That's well, I heard that and I liked it because it gave this slowly assembling like beginning a little like body or like foundation to stand on. And I liked that a lot. And so we get that, and we get this like shuffling little drum beat, and everything starts to build on top of that. And there is this sort of peaceful tranquility to the sounds they're producing. And I'd love to know, speaking, going back to visuals for a second, I'd love to know who those autographs were on that snare head, because you could see that there was like scribbles all over the snare head. And I was wondering, I don't know, it made me think of Poor Man's Poison when we saw the autograph
yeah,
on the
yeah.
stand-up bass, you know what I mean?
From
Um,
Stray Cats, yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So the 147 mark, we're at the 147 mark, and we get the sort of a shift in sound, and now things have a bit more of an edge to them, but almost an oblong edge. They're not jagged or jarring or anything like that, but they're still present. And the sunburst colored guitar played by your man with the curly hair is really providing all of this lovely, like sort of at times it's friction and at times it's smooth, but it's all kind of like the underbelly of the song, and it just sounds so good. I love it so much. It's the 308 mark, and we are finally introduced to some vocals. Nothing wild or outrageous, but I figured it was worth noting that we're now over 3 minutes into this before we get actual singing. And for as long of a song as it is, the vocals are kind of scant, or at least they're judiciously placed. They're not, this thing isn't, poured in prose. It's really more about just letting the music do the talking for it. And around the 440 marker, just after the singer drops the line, I knew I had to go, there's some really nice bass work filling in the space during the musical transition, and just before the lead guitar gets back to tickling the strings. But even then, like even during the lead, I'm noticing this really great bass that's happening underneath of it and almost acting as a counterbalance for the song, and I really really enjoyed that as well. And we now have both the guitarists facing one another at this juncture in the song, and they're like sort of playing off of each other, doing some fun scale stuff and kind of playing with different but harmonious octaves, as they're kind of collaborating at this point, going back and forth. And there's this swirl as they sort of become one, and there's this amalgam, right? And you're like, it's like this almost like a controlled cacophony of almost bluesy but certainly jangly goodness, especially the jangle, especially coming from that pink paisley Telecaster, and it sounds really really wonderful. There's more incredible frictious and rapid guitar strumming by the lead guitarist, I guess from around the 8 minute to the 8 minute and 21 second mark. And this is probably my favorite part of the song, where he's really going at it. And at the end, he does that flare as his hand slides down the neck or whatever. I just loved that. It sounded so good. It gave all this weird tension that kind of just boiled over in that 20-some second moment. Yeah, really good stuff. And after that, things kind of died down a bit before they inevitably go building it back up with clanging chords and a slowly increasing drum beat until we are firmly in double time territory. And they're at this point, like it even almost flirts with going like to triple time. And it really feels like everything's going to fly off the rails. But of course, it doesn't fly off the rails. Rather, it makes its way to the end of the song and a bit of a string bend, that's another thing. Your boy with the curly hair was doing some serious string bending all throughout the song, and it was just great. It was just adding all this little extra, like, what's this? What's that? Why is he doing like it just no different sound and variation to the otherwise conventional things that were being played on the guitar. And he was probably the most standout to me out of all the guys in this band. I really enjoyed his work. And I loved the performance, adored the music, and I hope in 15 years I am doing something, as cool with my friends as these like late 50s, maybe early 60s looking fellas are. Because goddamn, that'd be a lot of fun. They just look like they were having a good time. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they certainly were. So Dream Syndicate, formed in 1981 in Los Angeles, long time ago, and they are an alternative rock band, and they're active from 81 to 89 and from 2012 until present. So they're associated with neo-psychedelia, I guess, and the Paisley underground movement of the 80s, which I always thought was a load of shit, but anyway, as a label. But there you go. So the original lineup was the man you saw singing, Steve Wynn on vocals, guitar, and then Carl Prokoda on guitar, Kendra Smith on bass, and Dennis Duck on drums, and that's the drummer you saw. Okay. The band has never been, commercially successful, but in particular, their debut album, The Days of Wine and Roses, 1982, is held as a major influence in sort of American underground rock, and it's definitely shaped by their influences such as Velvet Underground, Neil Young, and television. I just have to say, this is it here. And it is a wonderful album. Really, really is cool. Their second album, Medicine Show, you guess what I'm going to do here. I really love this album. I think it's just even a step up. I prefer this album, actually.
The rare John adoring a sophomore album.
Yeah, it happens. Not very often, but it does. And what they did is they sort of took what they were doing and sort of hammed up even more, and particularly live and doing stuff, they would do these elongated tracks and just improvise the hell out of stuff and jam out, and a bit of that's what you saw there. I think on the album it's like is it 10 minutes or is it about 7 minutes? It's a long song anyway on the album, but I'm sure this live version is longer. So anyway, after those first two albums, saw them opening tours for REM and U2. But then after that, Prokoda left, Smith had already left, and there's a brief hiatus. The band got back. Steve Wynn, the vocalist, very much the band leader. They did 2 more albums, one of which I heard, which is bang on average. And then the band split. And actually, Wynn went off and did lots of other things. But they reformed the band in 2012 for a festival gig. And included Jason Victor on guitar, who you saw in this, who was a longtime partner of Wynn from another band, Steve Wynn and the Miracle 3. So then what they did was they toured for 3 years and then suddenly announced a new album in 2017. How did I throw myself here? This album there, of which you heard the title track. Almost, 29 and a half years since their last release. So, this must be one of the greatest comebacks of a band. At least 30 years off one album, they come back. And it's a belt of an album. I really, really like it.
Yeah,
So
I love the song, and I'm sorry you had mentioned like album version versus this live version, and that spoke to the length of it. It didn't feel like 10 minutes of a song.
yeah, yeah.
It had just the right amount of variation and movements to it that by the time it wrapped up, I was like, oh shit, here we are. This is it was a
Mm,
great listen. And if this is like their new stuff, talk about like a comeback that's worth it. That's not just a money grab.
yes.
You actually have good art that you want to put out there. That's great that you're still able to produce it, especially all these years later. You know what I mean?
It sounds more like their second album than anything else, but it sounds like their second album developed and more modern.
Yeah.
So, as you say, it's worth it. Slant wrote that the record effortlessly recalls the band's much too short original run while also settling into a lived in, comfortable groove. The songs are noisy, heavy, and cantankerous, which is always a good thing. Pitchfork called the title track, of which you just heard, Epic, representing a stylistic departure with its slow and trippy mix of funk, jazz, and Stax influenced R&B. So just for this album and what you saw in front of you, Steve Wynn, lead vocals, guitar, Jason Victor, guitar and sometimes backing vocals, Mark Walton on bass, and still going strong, Dennis Duck on his drums. On the album as well, it's mentioned that there is Chris Kakavas on keyboards and Linda Pittman, who is Steve Wynn's wife, backing vocals and percussion on 2 tracks, including this one on the album version. And the bass player Kendra Smith, who left after the first album, she actually sings lead vocals on the last track of the album, which is called Kendra's Dream. So that's quite sweet. They brought her back in.
Yes, I was just gonna say it's nice for the fans who've been with them this whole time to see some familiar faces and names
Yeah.
associated with it. It connotes that fences have been mended or whatever, right? There's
Yeah,
peace.
yeah. And as you very well know, female bass players are always very popular with the fans.
They are. They are.
Yes. I won't say any more. Kim Deal. Anyway, so I'll go through the lyrics, which are readily available, thank God, and not very long. So, a prodigal son who could not go on. How did I find myself here? It just changed into the album version very slightly. Open wide, I must swallow the tide. How could I find myself here? But I could not believe. I could hardly conceive. So I knew I had to leave. I had to leave. I'm wondering who put a spell on me and you. How did I find myself here? Tripped up by my own game, so I put my finger to the flame. How did I find myself here? But I just didn't know what I laid out below. So I knew I had to go. I had to go. Then lots more shenanigans. Impossible tide, so I stepped right inside. How could I find myself here? A refugee who couldn't see. How did I find myself here? But I just didn't know what I laid out below, so I knew I had to go. I had to go. Yeah, I mean, my take on this is this wonderful build-up. There's quite a smooth groove to it all, actually. Great backing from the rhythm section, as you mentioned, the bass player and the drums really steady and decent. He actually, until the very end, does very little apart from keep time, really. And then he does a little bit, but he does a solid job.
It's right when they start messing with the time signature of the whole thing that you start to see him
again,
life.
He's key to that as well.
Of course, yeah. It hinges on him, right?
But the guitar interplay is everything here. And if you see other live versions, they do the same thing, stand next to each other and play off each other. And it's just fun to see. And it culminates in this gallop to the finishing line. For me, weirdly, it had, because of the guitar interplay, it did have remnants of television, but a different sound, but the way they played.
Mm-hmm.
But it also had remnants of the Doors to me. I think if you changed the guitar from, to Robbie Krieger, then it would sound quite Doorsy-ish in its overall groove. But yeah, just put through that alternate filter. So I just found it interesting. I think it's really, I was really pleased, actually, that they came back with such a decent album. I've got they've done an album of since then as well, which I've got and haven't listened to yet, downloaded it. But I'm just really chuffed that they didn't come back and be all shite and naff. And
Mhm.
you know, I've heard some Miracle 3 stuff, and it's pretty good. And there's some live stuff as well. He does a similar thing. He's quite a rhythmic guitar player. I mean, he does do his stuff, but he has some nice drum patterns, and he's got you can tell he's got a groove to him as well.
You're talking about the lead
Yeah,
man here.
sorry,
You're talking about the lead man here.
yeah, the vocalist, yeah,
Yeah. Exactly. No, because he did have. That's one thing he deserves credit for, and that I noticed in my experience is he was the quintessential rhythm guitarist. He was doing a lot of really interesting rhythmic patterns over
Yeah.
top of beneath your boy who was doing the crazy leads over top of it,
Yeah.
and all the string bending and shit. It was a good dynamic between those two. It really was. Those guitars sounded great together.
It was, yeah, and he's a great straight man to, like
Yeah.
all lead guitarists, this ballerina who wants to go and do his stuff,
Mhm.
and let them play is what I say.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I shall wrap things up and say thanks for listening, Sandy. Folks out there, what do you think? I know from comments, there's a couple of people who mentioned their Dream Syndicate and desperately want to hear something from that first album. So disappointed you yet again by picking something later, but I hope you enjoyed it. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you think of the band and this album, and this track perhaps as well. Great live performance on KEXP, and yeah, drop some comments. Love to hear from you. We always really enjoy going through your feedback, your comments, your heaps of love and abuse in equal measure. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And
Really do appreciate it.
and if you haven't subscribed, please do. And hop on board the groovy train. I've said it before, I don't like that song, actually. I don't know why I keep saying that. But yeah, we really appreciate everyone who supports the channel, helps build it. There's only one way to go, and that is into the ocean. We're going to survive this nuclear war. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you guys.